Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant, with my permanent guest and co-creator, Cammy. Welcome back to the show, Cammy.
Thanks, Bryant.
We're very happy because it's October, which we've been having always a lot of fun with. One, having shows every week, the month of October, instead of bi-weekly. And two, it is nice and cold. That's it. That's why we're happy. It's 40 degrees in South Carolina this morning, so that was the gift that we needed.
Yeah, it was pretty nice
our
to
darkest hours.
Not feel like you're suffocating if you're beside someone in bed or whatever.
Right. Yeah. It's absolutely wonderful. So cats are cuddling up because they're cold, and it's just great. It's the perfect time to put on your favorite show, listen to it, and learn a little bit about the old Nicolas Flamel, who is not just a character in Harry Potter.
That is true.
That's the biggest reveal this episode. So yeah, we talked about John Dee, crazy old dude. I mean, maybe crazy. I don't know. I'm not a crazyologist, but he was a alchemist. He was a lot of things. A scholar, hermetic order guy who worked for Queen Elizabeth, was an advisor for her back in the time of Queen Elizabeth. 17th century, right? Yeah. So Flamel is actually a little earlier than this, than Dee's time. Flamel probably influenced Dee, I would imagine, in some way. But as always on the show, Cammy is going to give us a little story about Flamel, and then I'll lead a discussion into some of the history, sources, and learn a little bit more about this guy who is not just a Harry Potter character. So, Cammy, why don't you give us a story? Hopefully it's not Harry Potter.
It is not at all.
I don't think we could afford that.
I mean, but honestly, I don't know because I didn't watch those movies outside of the original ones. So I used basically Wikipedia for this, but the scribe did not set out to make gold. How ridiculous. Gold was something made over time by earth, something nature bestowed upon man. Man could not make gold. That was certain. No, Nicholas was not interested in wasting his time. But what made gold so valuable did intrigue him, and that was worth studying. Gold never ages, never truly loses the essence that makes it valued. And what if he could capture that, apply it to other uses? Not like Midas, who tarnished his world by making it too precious. No, this work would be secret. No one would know of the results. His journals under lock and key, hidden away in crevices, under floorboards, and in holes cut into much larger and boring tomes. And Nicholas kept working. Nights and days and nights became years and decades. And still he worked. It was never ending. He felt the pull constantly. He had abandoned his business to it. His family and friends, too, were cast aside. Here he was, with each great hair, becoming more and more worried, feeling he was doomed to never achieve such glory as what he sought to obtain, a feeling that nagged him when he tried to rest. The more he labored, the more he needed it. For it worked. Eureka! He could live eternal, but his body ailing, his mind as well. And driven in his quest, it could never work as well as he needed it to. So after 88 years, he put down his alchemy. The tiny stone he toiled to create lay at the bottom of a water dish, and the man himself lay down to rest forever.
Not bad. Was he 88? Was that how
when
old
he
was?
died? Yeah, that's what it said.
Yeah,
in
yeah, he is
Wikipedia.
88. Yeah, I can't do math that fast. No, that's wild. Yeah. Nicolas Flamel. Yeah, this dude, French alchemist who lived incredibly long, because 1330 was when he was born, 1418 is when he died, which is that's wild. That's a long time, especially in medieval Western Europe. That's unheard of. So it's just wild. So he's essentially known as a French alchemist and scribe. So he made a lot of his living initially scribing, which was really important and the only way to print books at the time. And printing books, but you have to be literate. You're going to learn a lot, and he did. And he's later known as having one of the biggest libraries, I think, in Paris or France, even at the time of his death. He's also sort of best known legendarily for the creation of what's called the Philosopher's Stone, which, if you've read the British version of Harry Potter, you would know that's the stone that gives you immortal life, gives you what you want, really is what it does in those films. But specifically here, it did give you immortality. It did let you do things like the biggest thing, transmuting gold from something like lead or coal or something like that. He in 1376, apparently, he got a ancient book of alchemy from a stranger, which this book was supposedly written by the patriarch of Christianity and Judaism, Abraham, and it contained instructions on how to create the Philosopher's Stone. It was very kind of Abraham. So apparently he studied it for many years. Then in 1382, he created the stone, and he used his gold to help build hospitals. He was very devout Catholic. He helped other like churches, charitable institutions, and things like that. And Flamel and his wife Purnell lived they were very modest despite their wealth. They did have like a big estate, but they were very modest, known for being very modest, but they were known for their piety and their generosity when they died in 1418 in Paris, or at least Flamel did. What's cool is a lot of the stories came several years after his death, but there's some things. So apparently, some people think that they faked their deaths and went into hiding. Some people believe that so Flamel was a part of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was a secret society dedicated to the study of alchemy and the occult. It was an occult hermeticism and metaphysics based. So we talked a little bit about hermeticism. This directly comes from the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. So it was this kind of weird post-pagan Christian teaching that apparently Hermes came back and like had these writings, like the wings on his heels.
Hermes thrice great, yes.
Yeah, came back and he kind of led this thing, and I think it was interesting. So I was kind of reading a little bit more about this, and one thing that I read that was important for like the Hermetics was, they were religious in a lot of ways, and obviously, I mean, we would kind of think it's a little wacko to be obsessed with like transmuting gold and things like that, but gold was seen as this like extremely pure substance. You mentioning Midas in your story was really great, and so to be able to like create gold, a lot of alchemists were interested in creating like the perfect human. It was all about this, and it wasn't. It's sort of difficult to say, but so transmuting gold was almost like could almost be seen as like a pious act by then by like these alchemists and these hermeticists. So to be able to create something so pure and beautiful out of something so like cold and ugly, I think for them was sort of just like taking care of yourself. So I hope that's just something that people kind of think in mind. So
it wasn't like necessarily like a greed aspect to it. It was more like a
exactly
like
and
a pride.
Right. Pride. I mean, yeah, it almost, there's a lot of ethical and religious theological debate. I think you can get into it, and I'm sure I'm coming to my own conclusions here, but I just think that that's something we should consider. And the thing is, the fact is, we do know Flamel was very devout. He did give a lot of money away. The thing is, he had a lot of money for several reasons. He had several properties in Paris. He was very connected with the French Catholic Church.
Yeah, that would still get you money today.
I'm just exactly. They owned a huge library. He was a scribe. I mean, there's tons of reasons why they could have money that isn't just kind of connected to that. But he was an extremely learned guy. It was great. So, and here, so the first book claiming that Flamel had discovered the stone was not even published until 1612, over 100 years after his death. So these stories weren't really there during his time. Like, he wasn't this sensationalist, scandalous kind of dude who was like, these words, the Philosopher's Stone, weren't on his lips, that whole thing. I mean, I'm sure This was a discussion that he had, maybe some stuff with the Hermetic Order. It is. I mean, like the Hermetic Order is pretty interesting. It did dissolve in 1908. It was a bunch of controversies. Some of them were later. W.B. Yeats, Aleister Crowley, and Maud Gonne, an actress, were like some popular members of it. It's. Oh wait, hold on. A secret society devoted to the practice for anyway. All right, so it's very Masonic, Freemason kind of
Sure.
thing. But it looks like women were admitted on an equal basis with men. So how
Oh,
advanced?
that's cool. Yeah.
So and so going back to the Philosopher's Stone, I thought this would be a good time to talk about that since they kind of go hand in hand here. There are some pretty early mentions. There's this book or this writing called Chrysopoeia, which is by Zosimus of Panopolis, which was written in 300 A.D. This specifically does that word means gold making, and it was it was about that subject. People believed that you could. I'm guessing it had to kind of do with the idea of like fake gold being made and things like that. So that would make sense that people would be creating imitations.
Man, just show them pyrite. They would just be like,
I know, right? Exactly. and Zosimus, he was an Egyptian alchemist himself. That lived back in the 4th century AD. So, but that was a time Egypt was, very Greek speaking, and he probably would have been learned, Library Alexandria kind of stuff. But the origin of like a philosopher's stone. So that writing by Zosimus is considered the earliest mention of it. But there are ideas in ancient Egypt and ancient Chinese alchemy of specifically transmuting base metals into gold and producing a elixir of life / granting immortality. So this idea, kind of unsurprisingly, is pretty old. But the idea that it was a specific stone that allows you to do this, like it takes the cost or whatever, that's a little older than we might realize. So I thought it was pretty cool. There's been a lot of debate whether it was a physical thing, symbolic, or spiritual. It's been written about for a long time throughout the years, both before and after Flamel's death. So I thought that was pretty interesting to see that, this guy Zosimus was specifically talking about transmuting it. And I wonder, what would have kind of... I doubt Zosimus would have been a Christian. I don't think... how like Egypt was, Christian at this time, or at least, the Council of Nicaea was like 100 years away. I think. No, this was so. I don't know. Zosimus. I wonder if he was a Christian. I should have looked up that. It doesn't seem like it though, but he could have been inspired by certain things.
what year
like
was
that.
it?
It was 400 or the 3rd century A.D. At the end of the 3rd century and the beginning of the 4th century AD. So probably not. But the influence of Christianity could have been around, but it
Sure.
looks like for him at least, it probably wasn't so much that. Just in general, ancient, or based off of ancient Greek alchemy is probably what he was going off of.
Well, it could have been other Abrahamic influences because you said that was like you're talking about Abraham of like Abrahamic religion, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it could have been through a different.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. There's the whatever book he supposedly written could have been influenced. Yeah, by other things. So yeah. Either way, the idea of a stone specifically allowing you to do this is a pretty ancient concept for many different cultures. Funny enough to see. So. Flamel himself, though, yeah, that's kind of what it comes down to. There's a few books in the 1600s, the Testament of Nicolas Flamel, the Book of Hieroglyphical Figures. These are both attributed to Flamel. It looks like they weren't published until later. There is a book called The Lives of the Alchemistical Philosophers. That's an awesome word, alchemistical. Please use that in your daily life today. By Arthur Edward Waite. It was a biographical sketch of many famous alchemists, including Flamel. So it seems like, after Flamel's life, he things disseminated, and people really took to what he offered, and he was I think just such like an outstanding figure, living so old. And there was like there's a story about his wives and his graves being empty, so that kind of helped perpetuated things. I don't know, maybe they had to exhume it for maintenance or something like that, and something went awry, and this story went around. And obviously, he was 88 years old when he died. That is heckin' old for living in this time period. So I wouldn't.
Plus,
be
he was
surprised.
rich.
Yeah, 100%.
So I
Yeah.
mean, they're like, oh yeah, he could definitely make gold and also stay
Right.
alive forever. I'm
Yeah.
surprised it wasn't like a vampire rumor or something.
Yeah, yeah. Some people believe that they fake their deaths, escape to India to live out their mortal lives. There is you can actually go to his house today in Paris. Some say that it's haunted by his ghost. Maybe
Oh,
it's just
that's
him, and they
cool.
don't believe him. Yeah.
Right. He
Get
lives in
out,
the wall now.
out, and they're just like, "Oh, you're ghost. You're so funny." Um, then the cemetery where they're buried is called the Alchemist Cemetery. Other famous alchemists can be seen there, and there's a popular modern book series called The Secrets of the Immortal Nicolas Flamel. Is specifically about Flamel. It's all fictional. It's by author Michael Scott, not the Office guy, but a real person who's an author. And yet the books tell the story of the Flamel's family and their fight against an evil sorcerer. So I think that's pretty fun. Very Percy Jackson-y.
Is it young
Yeah.
adult?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
I believe so. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, Flamel might have a musket and be a badass. I don't know. A very early one, but yeah. So it was cool to see that. My first mentioning was definitely Harry Potter. It's mentioned the first book's called the Sorcerer's Stone. They changed that to it was the Philosopher's Stone. They changed it because they were like, American kids won't know how to say that word. They won't read it.
Is that why they changed it for real?
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
They changed.
I
it
thought
Sorcerer.
maybe like that's just what we called it.
No,
America.
no. Scholastic was like, they're not going to know what philosopher. That's going to freak them out. They're going to start crying. So we need to call it a sorcerer because that makes more sense.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't.
less scary.
They're not
somehow.
wrong, but I think it would have been okay. So I'm surprised it hasn't been like retroactively. They're just call it the Philosopher's Stone. But again, I think too many people will be
Right.
like, oh, a new book, or oh, what's going on?
Right.
So yeah, they did. I remember that. But in the books, Dumbledore specifically, at the end, he talks about because they fight, back off Voldemort and Dumbledore. Spoilers for Harry Potter, the first book, by the way, 30 years. If
If you haven't read it, like I mean,
they learn about Flamel, Harry, Hermione, and Ron, and they learn about Flamel in library books, and they mention the movie, and to prove the existence, that's how they figure what Dumbledore was keeping secret in Hogwarts that year, and then they stop, they get it, and I think they said that they destroyed it or something like that. Harry Potter fans, please remind me. But
I don't read all.
Harry was like, oh, but what about Flamel? And he's like, oh, I've talked to my friend Nicholas, and he's decided that 400 years is enough.
He wants to die.
Yeah. He's a little
He's like,
skeleton.
climate change is too much. I'm gonna get out of here.
The industrial era was too much for me. So yeah. So I remember hearing that, but I thought it's pretty interesting that he was like a real dude, and it was pretty smart to use him in that way to figure that out. So yeah, Flamel, real dude. French guy, an alchemist and scribe, born 1330, lived to the ripe old age of 1418, was rich, and that probably helped perpetuate the myth. But I think the key takeaway here is that the myth, especially the Philosopher's Stone myth and his immortality myths, came about 100 years after his death, at least published work about it. So
I bet somebody just saw him on the street and was like, "No, that's definitely."
frick? Anyone above the age of 50 would have stood out. Yeah, like you would have been like, "Hold on, you're pretty old." I mean, if even 50 for the age of 40, you would have been like, "Wait a minute, you've got a gray hair. Are you Flamel?" No, but yeah. So Cammy,
But
thank you
in
for your
French,
story.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I translated all that to French. Es-tu formel? It's the best I got. But thank you for your story, Cammy. As always, we do still have 2 more episodes this month in the same theme. We found a female alchemist to talk about, so that'll be fun to flip the script regarding that. If you have any suggestions for November and December, please let us know. Mythstorie is all one word. There is no S at the end. There's something else that has the S at the end, so please don't confuse us. You'll know the difference. But Mythstorie also has an IE at the end of it. At gmail.com, you can get in touch with us directly. We have our Facebook group as well. You can get in touch with Cammy and I. Let us know. Comment here if you have any suggestions, especially if you think we missed something, got anything correct. Whatever you need, whatever criticism, give it to us. That's the whole point of the show. So anyway, Cammy, thanks again. And everyone, we will see you next time.